What I propose to do, with your permission, is to deal with some of the things that I think the Trinidad government could be doing in law to make, to avoid some of the injustices that we seem to have, especially in the remand system. Now, the justice system, as you know, is divided roughly into the policing section and the judiciary. Now, if you look at these travel agents, the travel advisories that we get overseas, they tell us, don't go to Trinidad and Tobago. Or they advise you not to go. They said, the place is dangerous, lots of crime, and very few of the crimes are dealt with, or they're able to solve very few of the crimes. Now, you may believe that, or you may not believe it. But when you read the papers on a regular basis, you see so many crimes being committed, and very few of them being solved, in fact. When the new commissioner of police came or was appointed, Gary Griffiths, he started off very well. But it seems, with respect, that things have fizzled out a bit. I'm afraid to walk down the streets at night. I live on U.W.I Street, which is close to the avenue. And I can walk down the avenue, but when I have to get to the few hundred yards to my home on U.W.I Street, I run. Because I expect someone to come at me at any time. They tell me that even though I'm Trini, they could tell that I have some foreign influence. Policing is not my forte, so I'm not going to deal with it. With your permission, I'll deal with some of the issues that I see in Trinidad, legal issues, and how I feel some of them could be dealt with. The first issue that I have to deal with is the question of the proliferation of guns. Now, in my view, the proliferation of guns in Trinidad and Tobago started and continues with the drug industry. While on the bench for over 40 years, I dealt with at least 7 international drug conspiracies, multi-million-dollar drug conspiracies involving the DEA and the RCMP. In 2 of those cases, we had massive amounts of marijuana being taken by helicopter to a place in the United States. The return trip was with cocaine and guns. The other cases involved transport, big transport trucks, basically. Every instance, guns coming in. When I was a young boy growing up in Trinidad, you had to be worried about knives. Now, all of them have guns. Now, it would be nice if the police could start dealing with the drug trade and dealing with the drug barons in Trinidad. But they are too powerful to be dealt with in this small place. They are very powerful indeed. Since Dole Chedi was prosecuted, I haven't heard of one other drug lord being arrested or prosecuted in this country. Now, quite a few people look to the judiciary and suspect that the judiciary could be responsible to deter crime and to reform criminals. That is not true. That is overstated. As the speaker said before, deterrence is an illusion. What we try to do is to follow the law, and what we hope to get from Parliament and what we hope to get from the Trinidad government, for instance, is proper laws. This great Trinidad is the amount of people who are remanded in custody and for the length of time. And it may surprise you to know that this could be dealt with very, very easily. All the government has to do is to pass a Bail Reform Act. The Bail Reform Act, we have one in Canada. There are various bail reform acts all across the world. Keeping people in jail, especially when they're in remand, not having separate remand centers, is a disgrace. To take people and to put them in St. Vincent Street or Frederick Street, that place that was old when I was going to school and must be over 100 years old, is ridiculous. They have things like electric monitoring now that you could use. And there's nothing. This is so simple. I read in the papers about people being incarcerated for years before they're dealt with. Now in Trinidad, we have a problem, or a few problems. One of them is giving evidence. A crime is committed, and everybody is afraid to tell the police or to report the crime. Why? Because they may get killed. Now, I suggested to one of the ministers some time ago how we deal with that in Canada. We have something called the principal exception to the hearsay rule. And there's a case called Regina versus Kellywan, which deals with that particular case. And what we do is, we say, okay, fine, there's a possibility that this person wouldn't want to testify later. There's a possibility that this person will be threatened with harm. So what you do, you take them into an office with a justice of the peace. You get them to take the Bible and to swear to tell the truth. And you ask them to relate what happened. And the Supreme Court of Canada has held that as long as the statement is reliable and necessary, it is evidence. What that does is that it kind of saves the witness a bit. Because even if they intimidate the witness, when she or he starts testifying, they could put the statement to them and deal with it. If they try to kill that person, as they do in many instances, they still have some evidence on which a jury could decide or a judge could decide. Speaking of juries, again, a problem in Trinidad is that no right-thinking person wants. Why? Because they're afraid. Because they would be intimidated, or because they could possibly be killed. Here again, the judges are there, and the judges should be able to protect these witnesses and these jurors. What we do in Canada, and I'm not suggesting that that's the only way you could deal with it, the judge refuses to give out the names of the jurors. The jurors are identified by numbers only. We have some very sensitive cases where there's a possibility that the jurors' safety may be affected by the job that they're doing. And there's no reason why that can't be done in Trinidad. Now, I want to tell you that when I was in Trinidad, I worked at the magistracy for 1 year. It was quite an experience. And I was surprised to hear that quite a few of the rules and stuff and quite a few of the practices haven't changed. And we had the same sort of situation in Jamaica. But Jamaica was fortunate. They had a Chief Justice McCullough, who's now retired, an amazing woman. They had the same kind of delay we had here. They had the same kind of people who were remanded forever. They had the same sort of unreasonable delay. So she went to the Canadian government and said, I need some help. The Canadian government sent down a whole bunch of people down to Jamaica. Not only lawyers, but people who dealt with court coordinations, people who dealt with setting cases, putting the whole thing on a computer system and showing how to set cases. They brought down prosecutors who were able to deal with disclosure. Under this Canadian system, if you're charged, you have to get full disclosure of what the Crown has. So they were able to train the prosecutors on how to give full disclosure. And more importantly, to deal with the delays, they invented something that I thought was really interesting. We got from them, and I was part of that group, we got from the judges the type of sentences that were imposed for the serious offenses. Like, let's say, apart from murder, shooting with intent and all those other serious offenses, found out what type of penalty was imposed. And we came up with an idea that perhaps after you see full disclosure, if you plead guilty within 30 days, the sentence would be 1/3 of what the normal sentence would be. Within 60 days from disclosure, and it was graded. And we found that by using that process, we were able to reduce the backlog in the courts. We also dealt with marijuana possession. Quite a few of the young kids were involved in marijuana possession, made that legal, and we had some provision where all the people who had previous convictions for marijuana convictions could come before the magistrate and have their records expunged. Now, there's no reason that I could understand why the Trinidad government can't deal with that sort of stuff. The Canadian government was very willing to deal. They had people, they brought down equipment, show them how to record evidence in court, how to be able to make transcript of evidence in court, how to set dates for trial, how to keep a track of where all the stuff is. But instead, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. The thing is that your Chief Justice, Mr. Ivor Archie, Chief Justice McCullough, and the Chief Justice from Barbados came to Vancouver while I was there. They came to see what the drug court was like and how we dealt with people who were addicted to drugs in the court system. So they're close, they're friends. Those three Chief Justices were friends. And I'm sure that Chief Justice McCullough must have told Mr. Justice Ivy or Chief Justice Archie about what was happening. Chief Justice McCullough was also amazing in that she was very close to the government. And she was able to get the government to put in all these amendments that we put in. I may point out that one of the amendments that we had to deal with unreasonable delay for trials. In our constitution in Canada, we have a simple statement. A trial has to be tried within a reasonable time. And our Supreme Court of Canada has decided to put some meat on the bones of those simple words. And they have indicated that in the case of summary conviction matters, the maximum is 18 months. In the case of more serious matters, maybe 2 years. And they have thrown out murder trials and quite a few other very serious trials when they infringe those rules. And there's absolutely no reason why those kinds of laws can't be introduced in this country. As I said, now, I just want to deal with one more thing before I sit down, and this is with respect to deterrence. In my view, the role of a judge in deterring crime is overstated. I found from my experience that people who commit white-collar crime are very often deterred by prison sentences. They're not accustomed dealing with the people they meet in jail. And talking about jail, I think also what should be done in this society is perhaps not only build new remand centers where people who are remanded would be kept separate from those who are convicted, but they also would be different types of jails for different type of offenses. You can't put murderers together with white-collar people, white-collar crime. But just a few observations that I made over the carnival time. I came down to fit, not to talk. But thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.